Hey guys, Joe here. So we're back analysing some more Reddit posts pertaining to porn addiction. Stopping and staying stopped. Was in a porn addiction for about 17 years of my life. Went through the whole NoFap arc. Went through 2 other paid programs until 2025 when I learned how to stop correctly and stay stopped via Tom Molyneux and Mary Paulus, going through Beyond Compulsion Academy, getting an education on addicted neural pathways, understanding how they work, understanding how pornography is this one case of the demonstration of addicted neural pathways and how we keep on relapsing again and again and again and again, despite wanting to stop, despite trying hard to stop, despite understanding that every time we say one last time, we keep going back into the addiction. So BCA came into my life, never looked back since, learned how to stop correctly and stay stopped, and so has hundreds of other guys now, still on the track for shifting more guys' lives in the right direction. So yeah, I wanted to sort of continue what we were talking about on the last video when we were going through some Reddit posts, reading the language within these NoFap posts and using our BCA lens to analyze the language and spot patterns of thinking which keep people in the addiction, keep on going into the cycle round and round and round and round. So we're going to try and correct some of this language. We're going to analyze what a lot of us went through when we were trying to find answers to stop porn, stay stopped. So yeah, let's just get into it. Let's read what this post is saying. So, Lord, I do not want to write this in public, but shame hides in the dark after all. Well, don't worry about it. I'm doing a public YouTube channel on the matter, so you're definitely not alone. The motivation for this post was that I had just a really embarrassing moment texting a friend, and I accidentally used an emoji from an AI porn chatbot Discord server. The mortification I got from that was immense, but luckily, if he realized he hasn't mentioned it, the same friend has also caught me testing out the new GPT voice models by trying to get one to do so. So this is a typical just situation, which of course is very common, but just a typical situation of how the addiction escalates, the addiction neural pathways are in a state where the behavior is escalated to other parts of your life. So let's say if you use ChatGPT for work, or you're doing it working on stuff, you'll find that a lot of these areas will sort of be touched by your addiction due to the fact that you continue to escalate, you continue to engage, you haven't ascertained the correct way to stop, and therefore the addicted part of the mind is most likely in control and pushing the addiction further and further and further. The nature of an addicted part of the mind when you're addicted to pornography is a default pathway to seeking out more porn, seeking out more ways to engage in your addiction, despite whether you want to engage in your addiction, despite whether you like the consequences of engaging in the addiction or not. Carrying on, all of this has culminated in me realizing how much I am hiding from other people. All this decrepit stuff I've consumed and done, from masturbating to pictures of friends, to watching awful perverse hentai and engaging in AI porn chatbots that often include a lot of things. The terrible things I've just become desensitized to. I am living a double life. Completely understandable to feel this way, completely normal to feel this way, completely understandable to sort of feel that you're living a double life. You wanting to engage in your addiction because you have the urges, you feel compelled in the moment, you have all these sort of glamorizing thoughts about porn when you're in the urge, when you're in that peak of withdrawal to want to engage in porn, but at the same time, you dislike all the consequences that come from engaging in the addiction, the shame, the guilt, the loss of time, the loss of sleep, all of that stuff. And this sort of paragraph here is very common among people who have tried to stop porn and failed to do so, or probably the better way of putting it is they just haven't ascertained the right strategy in order to stop just yet. And yeah, the sense of shame of the escalation, you're escalating in your taste, you're escalating into all these other niches within porn you feel like are not aligned with your values. That is also expected. The cognitive dissonance there is also very expected. If you're in an addiction, you don't want to feel all these negative consequences, yet you still want to engage in porn. Completely normal, but a bizarre sort of world to live in, as a lot of us experience. Carrying on, in some ways, my life is going really well at the moment. My fitness is probably at its peak. I have a new job now that I am genuinely excited to do, and I'm getting good at face-to-face contact time with friends and family. And this is the confusing sort of thing about porn addiction, because yes, a lot of areas in your life can actually be going very well. You could actually be on top of a lot of stuff within your professional and personal life in terms of living a satisfying life regarding those other areas. However, because you feel that you're still in this addiction, because you're still in this temporary state of being addicted to pornography, having addicted neural pathways to porn, and at the same time feeling that because you're still stuck in this, you don't deserve anything good in life, and you don't deserve to feel good about the good things in life that you've been achieving, the good things in life that you are enjoying. It's sort of blunted by the fact that you're still in this addiction and you feel that, damn, I'm still in this problem. And that negative self-talk in the back of your mind is just sort of blunting all the positive feelings that you can feel about the other things. And this is something to definitely unwire. But it's expected. It's a completely expected thought pattern to encounter if you're in a porn addiction. It's nothing to do with you. It's just the way that the neural pathways have been shaped over time, over years and years of engaging. And for some reason, all of that makes the dark side more shameful. Absolutely expected. What would people think of me if the truth came out? If only they knew how much of a gooner I was. Self-deprecating thoughts, completely expected. Completely expected if you've told yourself over and over and over again that the last time you engaged, it was the last time, it was the last time, it was the last time. And you're constantly in this cycle of not being able to stop despite yourself telling yourself countless times that you would stop. Self-deprecating language, completely expected to encounter in this area. I feel powerless to stop it. I'm not sure if making this post will even help. I get this feeling that this can't be real. I can't possibly be both these people at the same time. Powerless is a key word to take away here. Feeling powerless, helpless, hopeless. And again, after years and years of telling yourself that you stopped, after trying all these methods, after trying all these books, reading NoFap posts, trying to find a way to stop this reliably and stay stopped, has just not been successful at the moment. And therefore it's like, well, damn, I feel powerless at this point. I feel like everything I tried has not worked yet. Completely understandable to feel that way. I don't even know if I want to stop, and that makes me feel more ashamed. Even after listening all of this, I do not care. First thing I want to say here is that if you're addicted to pornography, if you have addicted neural pathways to porn, you're going to want to watch it regardless of the feelings of the consequences of engaging in it. Whether it's shame, whether it's guilt, whether all these things that you feel after engaging, you feel, and they're all negative, it doesn't stop the fact that if you have addicted neural pathways to porn, if you've been engaging since you were 8 or 9 or 12 or 13 or a young age, and you've been engaging all the way up to this point, and you have all that rewiring that's been happening over these years, you're going to want to watch porn, which is quite an important thing to sort of highlight here, because on the one hand, it's true that your addicted part of the mind doesn't want to stop, but your rational part of the mind is at the same time saying, I don't want to feel all these negative consequences. I don't want to experience any of these negative consequences from watching porn. And so, again, you're in this bizarre world where there's two sorts of opposing forces saying different things. And it's a normal mental position to be in when you're in this addiction and you've failed to stop time and time and time again. I try my best not to lie, and overall, I do a pretty good job when it comes to communication. Yet, I'm hiding a whole aspect of myself. I'm lying by omission. So at the very least, let me admit it here and deal with the consequences of what may come. And I really feel for the writer of this post here, because a lot of self-deprecating thoughts, a lot of self-deprecating sort of language and self-bullying can appear when you're in this position because you felt that you've tried so many times. Sit back and think, am I just not strong enough? Is there just something wrong with me? Am I someone who just will never escape this? And you feel all these things, and it can be really sort of difficult to come to grips with and experience this constant sort of mental conflict in your mind. But like I want to tell everyone here, it is possible. You just haven't ascertained the right strategy to deal with all this stuff yet. Dealing with urges in the moment, being confident when you're in an urge, being able to embrace the discomfort of an urge when it comes up, to rewire those addicted neural pathways, to eventually be in a position where porn doesn't have that kind of hold on you. I hope this post is at least helpful to someone and makes them feel less alone. If this is something that you relate to, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Pretty safe to say a lot of us can relate to that. Hey guys, so if you're familiar with the content at the moment, I just wanted to run through BCA real quick. So we've got a school community. We have, the normal bog standard community posts where we can share our wins, share our experiences, go to the classroom. And so if you were to join, this is what you go through. You would go through like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, so on and so forth. Everything is sequential. All modules are in a specific order. Everything is structured. And so when you click on one, you'll be able to go into the videos and actually go through every single step in order to install the new mental software, to get the new paradigm, to understand and ascertain the better way of processing urges, processing the addiction, and looking at this problem from a completely different lens. This is the exact steps that I went through. I did all this, plenty of stuff to look at, and every single week there are 5 calls that you can join. Calls that, number 1, will cover all the modules in depth. Anything that you didn't understand will be covered just to get you onto the right track, just in case you missed something or misunderstood something. These calls are to correct your understanding on anything that you didn't quite understand. Second of all, we have the straight line calls. Guys that have already stopped and are on the straight line, processing urges, living in that state of mental freedom, processing urges moment by moment. We have 2 weekly calls for those guys to ask questions and address any concerns that you might have, if you have any, during the early time of staying stopped and enjoying that permanent mental freedom. So guys, once again, you know where the link is, 15-minute call in the description below. If you've been watching for a while now and you're thinking of signing up, let's have a call first, see where you're at with things, and we can see if BCA is the right fit for you. Oh, here's another one. Being a high-functioning porn addict is so weird. So let's get into it. I remember someone mentioning on this subreddit about being a high-functioning porn addict, and I related super hard with them. Even though I'm highly addicted to porn, no one from the outside could ever guess that I'm crazy addicted to it. I think this goes to show that this addiction does not discriminate. It affects all sorts of people, as we're about to go to now. I have multiple female friends. I'm highly respected by everyone around me regarding my views. I'm a vocal feminist, always speaking up about women, LGBTQ rights, and so much more. Like, no one could ever imagine the kind of disgusting extreme porn I watch and borderline toxic porn games I play behind closed doors, because it is such a U-turn from my personality in general. When I'm not in a dopamine rush frenzy, even I don't believe what I consume. So again, it comes back to things that you're engaging in, the addiction that you're engaging in is not aligning with your values, it's not aligning with your personal beliefs, it's not aligning with your personal takes that you have on life in general. This does go to show to the extent of how the addicted neural pathways are functioning within a person. I have all sorts of people such as doctors, lawyers, religious people, leaders of the community who are in this problem, who are actively in this addiction despite not enjoying the consequences of engaging in the addiction, yet they're still coming back to porn time and time and time again. And this post goes to show that it is less to do with the actual way that you're viewing these certain things, although it definitely does contribute to the shame factor after it. I mean, look, if watching something and in real life it doesn't really pertain to your values or to the values that they hold, and then you experience shame and a double life feeling from that, yeah, absolutely understandable. But the point here is that when you're in an addiction and the escalation is expected because you haven't ascertained the right strategy to stop, you haven't ascertained the right strategy into what do I do when I have urges, then it just continues to escalate. The behavior escalates. The tastes of the content will also escalate, and this is very expected and it's very common. The issue is here is that because when you go through withdrawal and you're going through these urges and you're not really understanding what kind of mental position to take when you're in these urges, because as we understand, one of the default ways of dealing with it is go switch activity, go do something else, go run around the block, do some meditation, do some journaling, hold with the urge, do some urge surfing. All of these strategies, unfortunately, sort of default to that position of willpower on some sort of level, and it doesn't actually think through the choice, put the rational mind in control, acknowledge the desire, acknowledge the wanting to actually watch the porn, but then also put yourself in a position where you can actually approach the urge from confidence, knowing that you don't have to engage in it and that you can embrace the temporary discomfort when it comes up. Instead, what we're usually trying to do is willpower a way out of the situation. We're trying to reach out to an accountability partner. We're trying to do all these things which don't directly address the addictive mechanism in those critical moments of compulsive desire, in those moments of urges. And we end up relapsing. And when we end up relapsing, the main thing keeping us in the addiction is engaging in it time and time and time again, which results in the escalation, which results in the increased desire, increased use. Point of self-reflection where, look, why am I watching all this stuff? I don't agree with any of this stuff, yet I'm still watching it. And it becomes something sort of mysterious and clinical and something you're trying to figure out, but you just can't get your head wrapped around it. I feel like this makes the addiction even worse because the effects of my addiction are often hidden behind closed doors. This also means that if I ever get close enough with a partner, they'll eventually discover this side of me, and it would be a total break of faith for them. This is completely understandable, and I think what I would add to that makes the feeling of addiction even worse. I think what they're trying to describe here is that the feelings of all these thoughts running around in their head while they're in that state of addiction, whether in that moments of engaging in it or not, they're still feeling all this background noise of feeling shame and guilt and not feeling aligned with who they really are. And because they're then coming from that mental position to, let's say, as they just stated, a potential partnership or a potential relationship, and you're carrying that inside with you, and you're second guessing yourself, and you're trying to think, what am I going to do here? How am I going to handle this situation? What if I relapse? What if I slip up when I'm with this partner? And there's all that mental conflict. You're coming into the situation carrying all this baggage. And it makes total sense why it's a situation where you feel kind of overwhelmed if that was to ever happen to you, if you were to sort of get with a partner or commit to a partner, a wife or a husband, and you're there thinking, what do I do? I don't even trust myself in this situation. So it can be very difficult to sort of proceed with. This is one of the biggest reasons why I want to get rid of this addiction. Number one, so I'm not ashamed of the person I become at nights when loneliness and boredom strikes. And number two, so my future partner gets to be with someone she can love and respect. Very good ambitions to have, very relatable ambitions to have. And the key to this is being able to stop the behavior in those moments of urges, being in control, letting your sort of wins pile up one after the other, that compound effect when you get to the other side of one urge and the next one and the next one and the next one, and the momentum then keeps piling up, and those two goals become more and more achievable, more and more clear, more and more realized as time goes on, providing you have the right strategy to deal with urges in the moment when they come up. All right, so this next one, hot take. People here are not addicted, they're just bored and lonely. So let's start with this. I'm going to say something controversial. A lot of guys in these communities call themselves severely addicted, quote unquote, after one relapse or one bad night. But if we're being real, I think many people here are actually dealing with more boredom, loneliness, stress, lack of purpose, or too much screen time. Because think about it. When you're super busy, improving yourself, going outside, talking to people, training, studying, building something, urges usually become weaker. So the first thing I want to say about this is that I think when you originally engaged in porn, back at the very first time, back at the start of engaging in porn when you were very young, it is very likely that it was the case that there was an environment where boredom, loneliness, stress, lack of purpose perhaps, was present within that moment of initial exposure. And it may be the case that some of those factors sort of came in to bolster that compulsive behavior, to bolster the compulsive nature of porn, for example. However, what we tend to find is that when later in life, when you're in your adulthood and you're busy improving yourself, going outside, talking to people, self-improvement, building stuff, studying, and all that stuff is going on, yet you're still in a pornography addiction, this thought comes along and says, right, well, I'm doing all this stuff, yet my wanting for porn doesn't seem to diminish. It doesn't seem to go away. It's still actually very strong, or I'm even engaging in porn way more than I was when I was younger. And this is where a lot of people will get confused, because when you go on Reddit, when you go on a lot of these coaching services, they tell you all this stuff. They tell you, you got to do this. You've got to get into self-improvement. You got to make sure that your life is something that you look forward to live every day outside of porn. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite work the same way, because as we have stated before, a lot of good stuff could be happening in your life, but in the back of your mind, there's that addicted part of the mind, which is not giving you that feeling of fulfillment, not giving you that feeling that you deserve the happiness that you get from these other areas, and that because you're still in the addiction, you can't move past it, and therefore you're still in this mental state. Furthermore, what we find within, using the BCA lens and all of this is that the addicted part of the mind will come up with any reason it can, such as boredom, loneliness, stress, lack of purpose. It'll come up with all these reasons within those moments of urges. It'll say you're lonely, you're bored, you're tired, you didn't sleep last night. It'll come up with all these sort of reasons to prompt you into a mental position where you're more likely to engage. And what happens is it piles up more and more and more and more. You're trying to hold out, but eventually you end up relapsing because, one, you're defaulting to willpower, but number two, you're not actually connecting with that addictive mechanism, the addictive part of the mind, when you're going through urges. You're not putting yourself in a position, you're not putting yourself in a state of being in a tool where you can process the urges moment by moment successfully. And so there's a lot of that absent, and no wonder we get into this mindset of feeling that bored, stress, loneliness is the culprit. Carrying on, but when you're alone at 1 a.m. scrolling endlessly with nothing happening in life, your brain looks for easy stimulation. That doesn't mean habits can't become unhealthy, they absolutely can. But sometimes I wonder whether people are fighting the wrong enemy. I can kind of agree with this. The enemy, quote unquote enemy here, although we don't really use that kind of language in BCA, is that compulsivity, engaging in the behavior over and over and over again, would be the enemy here, if you want to call it that. That is if you want to stop negative consequences. Maybe the real problem isn't horniness, maybe it's emptiness. What do you guys think? Agree or completely wrong? So credit to this guy, he's just throwing this idea out there. But look, after, being in this game for about 17 years, understanding how to stop in an efficient, correct way, it's safe to say that a lot of these reasons generated by either nofap or within your own head, as it pertains to the reason for engaging, most of the time, they're just coming from that addicted part of the mind. They're coming from that place of being in the addiction, not really understanding what to do, and therefore just relapsing and pinning the reason on something that is not actually the thing in real time, which is prompting you to relapse over and over again. All right, porn is the nightmare that never ends. I wake up, I feel the urge, I'm stressed out, I feel the urge. I can't sleep at night, I feel the urge. Each time I watch porn, I tell myself this will be the last time, yet there's always the next time. We all relate to that. For over 15 years, porn has been on my shoulders. The addiction started when I was channel searching in the 2000s, making the discovery that certain channels straight up played softcore porn past midnight. Not sure if they do this anymore. Then through the middle school and high school years, I'd go school numb from watching porn every single night on my phone. This is very common. So when you had those TV channels, perhaps it was music videos or other sort of channels, when you got cable, a lot of that, if you're like a millennial, was a prime sort of place to be exposed to this sort of material, develop those addictive neural pathways. As it's all very normalized, it's all very normal to switch on the TV and see all this stuff. Obviously, we're not aware at the time, but this is where we've ended up. Now, sessions would last to the point where I nearly pass out from dehydration, and sometimes I've developed nasty blisters, but nothing could ever discourage me from trying to reach the 5-second high. Totally expected behavior, escalation of the behavior, very common, very normal in this day and age. Currently, I feel I've reached the low point of my life, and porn is making everything worse. After all these years, I've realized porn isn't exciting or arousing anymore. It's just a compulsion. That's the wording that we're looking for. The last time I watched porn was actually the 4th session of that day, and after it ended, I nearly vomited. I've been clean out for 5 days. I've wiped all my porn drives and even downloaded a porn blocker on my phone. Still, I feel the urge. This is like the sort of normal routine a lot of guys trying to quit pornography have. They end up in a situation where they're like, right, I need to step away. I need to like clean my hard drive, all this stuff, so I can have a nice, fresh slate of trying to stop again. And what also happens is there are these other things that they put on top. So I remember when I decided to use a porn blocker in hopes that that would be an extra layer of buying time to actually think about the choice that I'm about to make when I'm in that state of compulsive behavior, compulsive urges. However, compulsive desire refuses to be ignored, and what tends to happen is that whatever happens and whatever went through my mind, I would end up uninstalling the porn blocker, and I'd be back in the same position as I was in before installing all that stuff. So blockers, I've used them. They didn't work for me. Always end up in that position where I would overcome that mental hurdle of, as they say, buying time for an urge to sort of ride its way out. I would always end up uninstalling the porn blocker because I didn't understand the nature of the compulsive desire back then as I do now. Not entirely sure what I want out of telling this story, but I did want to see if anyone with a similar story has advice to give me. I also want to tell young people who are recent porn addicts to try your hardest to quit right now. Porn and porn can and will take over certain parts of your life. It kept me from wanting to go to social events, meeting potential dates, as well as destroying my sex life. Stop while you can. So there's some very real negative consequences there. Isolating yourself because you feel disconnected from everyone after relapsing, so you don't want to go out and socialize. Certainly don't want to try and meet potential dates because you're full of anxiety, you're full of all this mental baggage that you don't want to carry into a social situation, and you find it a lot easier to sort of isolate and stay disconnected from people. And of course, the sex life makes total sense, PID and whatnot. And I want to come back to the wording here of try your hardest to quit right now, right? And I feel that we can go into a lot of dichotomy of the language here, but essentially, if you're trying to quit, if you're trying to do the whole process of going towards quitting rather than stopping, it's very important to note here is that when you say quitting, it actually filters into the language of what we don't actually want, which is deprivation thinking. Deprivation thinking is a very unseen and very sort of overlooked mental barrier when it comes to stopping compulsive behaviors in general, not just porn specifically, but it puts you in that mental position where you feel that you have to quit and cut it out of your life and therefore get all the negative feelings of deprivation thinking, as opposed to stopping behavior, using a system to deal with urges when they come up from a rational perspective, from the rational part of your mind, where you can approach urges with confidence, as opposed to using all this language which puts you straight into deprivation thinking. So that's what we want to sort of correct here. Click on the link in the description to take you to the addiction quiz. From the results, you'll know whether you have a compulsive behavior with porn or not. You don't have to opt in for further interest in BCA, and we'll just send you over the test results to your email.